Okay, it's about time for me to look at my Super Bowl closet again, all right? This is Terrence's Road to the Super Bowl. We've been doing this since July. Super Bowl 53 is here in Atlanta, Georgia on February the 3rd. And I've covered over 30 of the 52 Super Bowls that have taken place so far. That's a lot of Super Bowls, okay? And as a matter of fact, the very first Super Bowl I covered was for the San Francisco Examiner when I covered the Oakland Raiders. And guess what? That was 1980. Those Raiders went on to the Super Bowl that year. The first year I covered the National Football League on a regular basis. Now, here's what's interesting about that, all right? They go to the Super Bowl after the 1980 season. They play in New Orleans in January of 1981 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, back then, the great Paul Zimmerman, football writer for Sports Illustrated, legendary. Paul Zimmerman just died a few months ago. Paul Zimmerman used to run this pool in the press box, in the main press box, for hundreds of reporters, all right? And whoever got the closest to the final score would win the kitty. And this was huge. And here I am just a couple years out of Miami, Ohio. I mean, I could use a little cash, all right? Particularly living in San Francisco, which is not the cheapest place in the world. All right, so this is a pipe dream. Anyway, so I picked the final score to be Oakland 27, Philadelphia Eagles 10. Final score, Oakland 27, Philadelphia Eagles 10. Ching, ching. I mean, I was able to pay the rent in San Francisco for about a year after that. It was unbelievable. So, forevermore, whenever I saw Paul Zimmerman, months, years, decades later, he didn't call me Terence. He didn't call me Terry. He called me 27 to 10. Hey, 27 to 10. I kid you not. 27 to 10, I see you over there. It was great. Anyway, we're going to look at the closet. Before we look in the closet, let me tell you about this T-shirt. This is one of my favorite T-shirts. Brett Favre, one of my favorite players, number 4 here. Okay, look at the back here. Look at the back. Look. See that? Okay. That's Brett Favre's Steakhouse. Okay. Way back in the day, my parents lived in Milwaukee, and so I took them to a Packer game. We used to go to Packer games all the time when we were growing up. My dad was an AT&T supervisor, so I was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, home of the University of Notre Dame. We moved to Cincinnati, we moved to Chicago, moved to Milwaukee. So they lived in Milwaukee for 27 years. So took them to a Green Bay game because we went to Green Bay as kids all the time, or when the Packers would come to Milwaukee. So it's a way to treat them. And we went to Brett Favre's Steakhouse. Here it is right there. Look at this. Okay. And the food was good. Packers against the Falcons. Okay. This got nothing to do with the Super Bowl, but I just had this shirt on, so I thought I would just tell you about it. Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the closet here. And there's all kind of things. What can I show you? I can show you some of my Super Bowl bags. I could, but I won't do it today. Okay. What else I got? I got all these Super Bowl notebooks with various things in it. I mean, I got some of every. I got some of. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff I got in here. But what I'm going to show you though, I've got all these Super Bowl T-shirts. I love T-shirts, all right, and I didn't get any for Super Bowl 15, Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 17. I think the first Super Bowl something I got as far as a T-shirt was Super Bowl 18, and I got that in here somewhere. Okay, let's start with this. All right. Remember these people? The Hogs. That's Joe Theismann and his offensive line. Those Washington Redskins of 1983, Joe Gibbs, they were considered invincible, all right? They were playing the Raiders in the Super Bowl, and that Super Bowl was in Tampa, Florida, all right? And matter of fact, I got this from back there. There it is. Super Bowl Sunday, January 22nd, 1984, Tampa, Florida. And that was an interesting Super Bowl. And what was interesting about it, that was a Super Bowl where Marcus Allen in the third quarter gets the ball, okay, and he goes left, and then he goes right, and then he goes that way for 74 yards. And it led to one of the greatest photos I've ever seen in my life. It was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And it was Marcus Allen like running toward the camera. And then you had all these Washington Redskins defenders like laying down, face down on the ground because he's just outrunning them. All right. Tremendous picture. All right. So that was that Super Bowl. Then the next year, and I got to tell you about this. Working at the San Francisco Examiner, and I did a whole road to the Super Bowl about this. Go back about 6, 7, 8. So I'll just give you the Cliff Note version of what I said back then. It was great. We had the super staff back then, and I covered the Oakland Raiders mostly. But what they did was when whichever Bay Area team was doing the best, it was all hands on deck with the super writers. Right. So 1980, I'm covering the Raiders. The Raiders go to the Super Bowl and win it. Okay. 1981, the 49ers of Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, they go to the Super Bowl and win it. Okay. 1982, Niners didn't do much. Raiders made it to the playoffs, didn't do anything. And 83, I just told you about 83, that was the Raiders with the Marcus Allen run. And they won the Super Bowl against the Washington Redskins. And then came 1984. 1984, the Super Bowl was down the road from San Francisco in Palo Alto. All right, so it's the 49ers against the Miami Dolphins of Dan Marino. Now look at this. I showed you this before, but I got to show you this to you again. This is one of my all-time favorite shirts. The San Francisco Examiner. They give all of the super writers these. Everybody that was covering the Super Bowl back then. See that? San Francisco Examiner, Super Bowl, and with a play, that Super Bowl 19, And then you see on the sleeve, San Francisco Examiner. This is cool stuff. It still fits, by the way. Great T-shirt. Anyway, this was a Super Bowl where Dan Marino was making his huge debut. He got flattened. They had Dan Marino, and the 49ers had a guy named Joe Montana. No match. All right. Let me show you a couple more here, but I'm going to save some of these for another road to the Super Bowl. Let's see what else I got. I got that one. Let's go with this one here. This one is from February 4th, 2007, and this was another one down in South Florida. Chicago Bears against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, what was interesting about this was a Super Bowl that featured for the first time 2 African American head coaches. All right, you had Lovie Smith for the Bears, and you had Tony Dungy for the Colts, and of course the Colts won the game. Right, but what was more interesting than all that, at least to me, was the halftime show. Halftime. Do you remember who the halftime show was? Yeah. It involved Prince. All right. Not only did it involve Prince, but at halftime, it started to rain. So, with the rain coming down, Prince sang, Purple Rain. It was awesome. It was just awesome. So let's see. I got a couple more here. What we got here? This one here. Okay, this was this was Arizona. Oh, I definitely remember this one for good and for bad. This was Arizona, February 3rd, 2008. Okay, we're talking about the New York Giants against the supposedly unbeatable New England Patriots. All right, here we go. This was early into the Patriots dynasty. All right. You remember what happened in this one? This was a game when every writer in the press box screamed to the top of their lungs, not because they were so excited at what just happened, but because their entire deadline was blown because of this one play. You know what I'm talking about. Eli Manning dropping back and just throwing this desperation pass deep. He was almost sacked by it. Eli was almost sacked. Just deep. And then you had David Tyree somehow making the catch and trapping the ball against his helmet. And the play continues. Of course, they score and they win again. But anyway, I just remember I had to tear up my entire story and get me rewrite. That was a lot of fun. That was a Super Bowl right here. I mean, fun for you guys, but not for writers. Let's go with one more here. Okay, this one is maybe two. Nah, I'll go with one more. I got to say some stuff for another road to Super Bowl. This one here. This was also South Florida. This one was back on December 10th, or February 10th, February 7th, 2010. Sorry about that. I can't even get the date right. February 7th, 2010. Okay, South Florida Super Bowl. This was the New England, or rather the New Orleans Saints versus the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts were back in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning had a chance to win it again, and they should have won it again, all right? But you had another Peyton, okay? Sean Payton, the coach of the New Orleans Saints. Now remember now, the supposedly hapless New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints have not done anything, but they're in the Super Bowl. So Sean Payton, and by the way, I went to school at Miami, Ohio. Sean Payton got his big start as the offensive coordinator at Miami, Ohio, way back in the day. Just want to throw that in there. So there's Sean Payton, to begin the second half, calls for an onside kick. Nobody does that in the Super Bowl. He gets it, and they score. It was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. Okay. I mean, there's some other stuff in here with it too, but you know what? This will entice you to come back for more Road to the Super Bowl. That's it for today. But we'll have some more next time. Come back.